funeral planner, I value the commitment that Michael brings to his role as a celebrant with Tobin Brothers Funerals. He has interviewed so many families, but I couldn't resist turning the tables on him and asking about his work in this industry.
Some of you say, joy is greater than sorrow. And others say, nay, sorrow is greater. But I say unto you, they are inseparable.
Thank you, Felicity. And as we'll hear, there were times of both joy and sorrow in the life of Charles Nobody.
Well, that was just a little bit of footage from the very first memorial service I had the honour of leading. Since then, I've led more than 2,500 funeral or memorial services, and during the past 17 years, of course, much has changed, both in public attitudes to death and grieving, and indeed the way we memorialise those we've lost. I suppose in many respects, the civil services that I assist families to plan are all about giving people permission to think outside the square, and persuading a grieving family that the funeral service is about doing what is right for them. I know he liked watching TV, but was it mainly sport, or were there specific programs that he hated to miss?
Young Talent Time on Sunday.
Yes,
Absolutely. The Johnny
Young?
Johnny Young.
All My Loving.
Yeah.
The swaying, the whole thing. Pioneered in Australia by Tobin Brothers Funerals, the venues for life-centred services really are limited only by your imagination. Usually led by a civil celebrant, they can take place at a funeral director's chapel, at a memorial park, at a football ground, or here at the beach. Young people particularly are very techno-savvy, and they expect funeral chapels to be equipped with the latest technology. In terms of technology, my own technology, I will never sit down with a family without my little audio recorder. And the beauty of it is that when I'm listening back or writing the service, there'll be maybe one little statement made by somebody that relates to maybe a favourite saying or an expression that Dad had, or some little gem or pearl of wisdom, which lifted verbatim can add so much realism to the story. My role as a celebrant is never to stand up there and pretend to have known the person who's died. I see myself as your spokesperson, sharing on the day of the funeral with the people there your memories. Is that agreeable to you?
Absolutely.
The conference with the family is enormously important. Families have often said to me, when we've sat down at the conference, I don't know what I'm really going to talk about. You know, there was a lot of parts of his life we didn't know about. And yet, through the questioning and how one answer will lead to another question, so the information keeps flowing. And at the end of it, they'll say, gee, yeah, that wasn't so bad after all. Other families will say, you know, that was really quite therapeutic. And that's the other element of a comedy. It gives people an opportunity to open up.
First time we bought a television, a lovely little lad, him lying down on the floor, you know, and I'm lying down in front of him and watching this TV for the first time. That's a memory that I still keep, and that love and comfort that I could snuggle into him.
Sometimes they will shed a tear. And I say, that's fine. You know, we just pause, we go on. There's laughter, there's tears. That in itself is enormously therapeutic. That's a good feeling when you come out of a conference like that.
The planning of a funeral service can be up to a week in its preparation. There's much that goes on behind the scenes, ensuring that nothing is missed and that everything goes exactly as the family has planned.
We're going to begin the service with a song chosen by the family. Don't title it, because I'll mention that in my introduction. I'm then going to basically look at some of the things that people... To me, one of the most important responsibilities of the civil celebrant is to be as familiar with the text as possible. I suppose in my case it's a bit of a throwback to my newsreading days with the ABC, but it's an absolute truth that the more familiar you are with what's on the written page, the better your delivery and presentation will be at the lectern. I'm going to ask you to come forward and light a candle and symbolically place it in the sand bowl in memory of Ivan. Thank you.
The civil service is different from a religious service in that the family are able to have total input into the creation of their service. This might include the choice of some special pieces of music, some readings or pieces of poetry. Family or friends may offer some insights or some stories into the life that they are remembering, either with words or with photos. A person's life can be celebrated in many ways, perhaps with the releasing of balloons, or of butterflies, or of doves of peace. No one who works in this highly specialised field is not changed in some way. Michael was asked recently how it had impacted on him.
I think one of the things that I've become most conscious of in the years that I've been a celebrant is basically an awareness of my own mortality. When you find yourself leading a funeral service for someone of your own age or a little bit younger, you think, well, there but for the grace of whatever, go I, and how lucky am I to have my health? How lucky am I to have a job I enjoy doing?
I don't think Michael is thinking of retirement anytime soon, but I am intrigued to know just what his own epitaph would be.
I think I'd like to borrow the words of Peter Pan, who in that James Barrie classic said, "To die would be an awfully big adventure."
He glimpsed his first deceased person when he was a boy, and in the footsteps of his father has worked in the funeral industry since he was just 16 years of age. Today, as Managing Director of Tobin Brothers Funerals, he leads a company that helps thousands of families every year to celebrate lives. In the next episode of this series, we take a look at a day in the life of James McLeod.